Hello. Welcome to AIPH's Green City Briefing, where we're looking at growing trees for climate change resilient cities. I'm Francesca Boyd, and I'm part of the Green City Initiative here at AIPH. Green city projects bring nature and plants into the urban environment to transform lives and spaces. Before we delve into the topic, please could I take the opportunity to remind you of how today's webinar is going to run. First, I will introduce the MC. This will be followed by our first speaker, after which we will have our second speaker, followed by a move to the discussion section. This is the opportunity for you to ask questions and contribute to the discussion. So as the presentations progress, please do add your questions through the Q&A function that you'll find at the bottom of the screen. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the Worshipful Company of Gardeners for their continued support of the AIPH Green Cities Briefings programme. And finally, as many of you already know, we capture the latest Green City news, projects, research and initiatives from around the world in our monthly AIPH Green City Global Update. Sign up today via the link in the chat. The green city environment is unique in the number of people involved and engaged in its creation. Throughout this year's series, we have explored a vast range of projects alongside our many different partners. At AIPH, we believe in bringing together many different organisations and professionals to share best practice and research, such as the UNECE, which is where our MC joins us from today. The UNECE is at the forefront of a range of projects, and on screen now you can find further information about the different urban nature initiatives alongside their upcoming events on drought and on urban forestry. So please do take a moment to take a print screen here or scan the QR codes. You can also follow the links in the chat. So Stefania Romano joins us today as our MC. Stefania is the coordinator of the Transformative Urban Nature Action at the UNECE. I'm sure she'll tell us more about this in just a moment. She has worked for international organisations such as ICLEI, leading on cities with nature, and regions with nature, focusing on biodiversity. Stefania has a background in public policy and first worked for the Italian Ministry of the Environment, first posted in Serbia. She was later seconded to IMELS, to an international organisation, and worked with the Regional Environmental Centre, where she became director of the Italian Fund, targeting specific environmental programmes and channeling government funds throughout several geographical regions. And in this institutional framework, Stefania co-developed the Sustainable Development Academy. On behalf of the Italian Ministry of the Environment, Stefania coordinated the bilateral environmental cooperation between Brazil and Italy, setting up the relevant institutional agreements and supervising the Italian pavilion at the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 for the Italian delegation. Really such a huge breadth of talent and experience. Stefania is our MC today, and I'm sure we'll have some very interesting contributions to the discussion part later. Thank you ever so much for joining us, and without further delay, please may I pass this over to you, Stefania.
Thank you so much, Francesca. A pleasure to be introduced by you, and a pleasure to be able today to facilitate this webinar, this briefing. I really very much thank AIPH for their hard, dedicated, passionate work on nature. And I think that here the real topic and real focus is not us, but it's nature. Because if you think about, if we just imagine, a date farther in time, like for example 2050, where 70% of people will be, the entire population will be living in cities, certainly we have two scenarios: either cities will thrive or they will collapse. And the key determining key is nature, whether we are going to be integrating nature into cities. And this is the reason why UNECE has been strongly and enthusiastically working on developing specific initiatives on urban forestry. We have a number of initiatives, and through all of them, we try to be providing guidance, tools, support through policy development, knowledge transferring, awareness raising, partnership and collaboration, capacity building. The inception of these initiatives has been a kind of campaign which we call the Trees in Cities Challenge, which we launched in 2019, which is to support mayors to pledge trees. And after that, we have been developing Trees in Dry Cities Coalition, which we inaugurated last year at COP28 in Dubai for water scarce regions. The Petite Forest Network, which is, you can call them micro, small pocket forests, which shows how small actions can impact, greatly environmentally. And we also have a late initiative, which is very much linked to food, like how potentially trees can also provide food. So with that, I very much look forward for the involvement of additional stakeholders in our initiatives. On the 20th of November, we are going to have a specific webinar on water within the framework of the Trees in Dry Cities Coalition. You can just, check on the website and find and register. And on the 28th of November, we are having an open webinar on the Petite Forest Network. Also, at the upcoming UNCCD COP in Riyadh, we are having a specific event on Trees in Dry Cities Coalition. Now, talking about our initiatives, my pleasure today is to be moderating this session because there are two very interesting speakers. We'll have Istanbul later, which is part of Trees in City Challenge. But before that, I very much would like to hear from Rick Vreese. He's senior researcher and team leader for urban forestry at the European Forest Institute. He coordinated the Sino-European Clearing House project, but also the Urban Nature Plants Plus project. He's visiting professor to the Guangzhou Institute of Forestry in China. And I think that was very interesting that I would very much like to be hearing from Rick is he works and research on the interrelation between humans and trees. And his research is on integrating ecosystem services in decision making and urban planning through different lenses. So I would be very interested to be hearing from Rick what it means and how it brings trees, humans, the decision making urban planning system. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. And for the opportunity to speak today to all of you. I've I've heard a lot about IEPH. Unfortunately, never have been really able to participate in any of the events, so I'm very grateful for the invitation today. Um, I yeah, I have 50 minutes, which is not much. I will be focusing my presentation today on the role of urban forests as nature-based solutions. I have shared my screen, and I think that you should all be able to see the screen. My presentation today is building on two projects mainly. So the first one is Clearing House, which was, as you can see, in collaboration between China and Europe. And the other one is another Horizon Europe project named or termed Urban Nature Plans Plus, which I will very shortly introduce later on today. So, urban forests, I think you all know urban forests or the concept of urban forest, or at least you can imagine a little bit what an urban forest is. We have introduced this concept of urban forest as nature-based solutions as a way to, well, reimagine a bit the role of urban forests and urban trees in cities. So for urban forests is, as the definition by Jess Vogt here, is includes all kind of trees, vegetation, and so on, growing in or close to cities. And I think we have a global audience today. The concept of urban forestry originated in America and then came to Europe and is also very strong nowadays in Asia, with China as one of the forerunners, but also in Africa, sorry, and Latin America. So urban forests and trees in urban areas are not new. If you look back at the writings of the Romans, for instance, or the Greek ancient history, you see mentioning of trees in cities and towns definitely. Um, the conceptualization of urban forests as nature-based solutions is, of course, quite new. Um, so the UN Environment Assembly in 2022 has defined nature-based solutions as actions to protect, conserve, restore, and so on, environmental systems to restore nature in cities, but with the aim to solve all kinds of societal challenges that we are dealing with in cities, as you all know. So important in this conceptualization of nature-based solutions is that we are not only looking at the solutions effect, but also the co-benefit of increasing the biodiversity and increasing the ecosystem services being delivered by urban forests and urban trees in this case. So well, and this picture you have maybe seen before. It's illustrating why we have to consider urban forests and urban trees as nature-based solutions, because it's not only the simple fact of the tree being in the city, but the tree is delivering all these multiple benefits. In the term of the or under the terms or under the theme of this series about climate impact, you can see, of course, as we know, the positive impact on flood prevention, but also, for instance, reducing the need for energy, not only for air conditioning, this is quite well known, but also the need for heating in the winter time. So where we have seen, for instance, in before the I'd say 20th century, that urban forests and urban trees were much more used for beautification of the cities. Nowadays, it's much more instrumental approach to urban forests and urban trees in cities. And this is also reflected, for instance, in the nature restoration law and the European biodiversity strategy, and also the European forestry strategy, which is now in force. So the latest European forest strategy is also referring to the need of having trees and forests in and around cities and towns, and this is this is the first time really that we see this the European forest strategy, which is originally or traditionally very rural oriented, referring to urban forests and urban trees. So I thought it was interesting to bring this perspective of about public perceptions on urban forests as nature-based solutions in Europe and China. So I've referred to this clearinghouse project, which was a collaboration between 26 partners in Europe and China, and we are very grateful to the funding by the European Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program and the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology to bring all these 26 partners together. So unfortunately, the project recently ended, but still we have very nice results we can bring to you. And was very interesting to have a look into how these different societies look towards urban forests and urban trees. China is very rapidly urbanizing. Europe is also urbanizing, of course, but probably at a lower speed. And the paradigms and the traditions in forestry are quite different, but also the traditions in urban greening. So unfortunately, I cannot not go into all the interesting aspects. But one of the things which I think was very relevant for the work done by IEPH is the public perceptions. And this is not new, of course. There are many studies or surveys being done, all throughout the world on how people look at trees. But why do we think our work is interesting? For the first time, to our knowledge, we have been really looking at the continental scale in Europe, and well, let's say the continental scale in China. We have also been using to this services. I assume in the audience today we have several people working in cities and towns, park managers, street treat managers, and so on. And I'm sure every day, definitely, well, in autumn times, as we are now in the autumn in Europe, every day you receive complaints about the trees, about the falling leaves, falling branches, falling things from the birds in the trees, and so on. So we were also interested in how do people look at these services, let's say. Um, so we have looked into about 15, 20 ecosystem services, but in the frame of today, I'm focusing on three ecosystem services related to urban trees and urban forests. So we asked people, well, think about the tree of the forest closest to where you live and give us your impression about how important these trees and forests are for providing a couple of ecosystem services. You see on the left, carbon storage, in the middle, temperature reduction, and on the right, the importance of urban forests and urban trees for health and human health and well-being. Um, and you see some differences. So the blue is Europe, the red is China. And overall, Europeans have a bit higher appreciation of urban forests and urban trees. And although, from a scientific perspective, the difference is significantly different, so from a scientific perspective, we can say, well, Europeans and Chinese populations look differently. In the end, you see that the differences are not so outspoken. Um, you see, well, it's a bit more outspoken for carbon storage, less for temperature reduction, and the importance of urban forests and urban trees for human health and well-being is also higher in Europe than compared to China. What we found very interesting is to look at these services, so the negative aspects related to urban forests and urban trees. We, as I would say, green people or promoters of urban forests and urban trees, tend to focus on the services and have less attention towards the disservices. So, but as I said before, speaking to managers and forest rangers and people working really in the field, you have the impression that the population is maybe more complaining or complaining a lot, and how to say that people are maybe not so interested or do not like so much urban forests and urban trees in their neighborhoods. So therefore, it was really interesting to see that this is quite scoring relatively or quite low. You don't see it here on the graph, but if you ask people the general question, do you think that urban forests and urban trees are providing more disservices or more services? It's less than 10% of people in Europe and in China that really focus on the disservices. I will not really go into the details here of the differences for the disservices. The main message we want to bring is that the people overall really prefer urban forests and they see much more the importance of the services than the disservices. So with our project, we delivered some outputs, of course, and I wanted to share some of the outputs with you, which can be used in your daily work, maybe, or can inspire you. On the website of Network Nature, which is the umbrella project of all European funded research projects on working on nature-based solutions, you can find 22 case histories about urban forests as nature-based solutions, ranging, well, 60 are in China and 16 are in Europe. For instance, the Beijing Plain Afforestation Program is really interesting because it's indicating how in China this greening, these afforestation projects are really taking off and at a high scale, at a high speed. Another interesting case, I think, is also the Colserola Park in Barcelona, which is very close to the city, and which is showing how, for instance, collaborative management can work, how people can be involved in thinking about the management and planning the development of the park. Um, well, as a tree, as a tree, the life starts when you're young, when the seeds are growing. So we try to plant the seed with children through this education package, which we termed City of Trees, which is now available in 6, 7 languages. And for me, interesting with this package, or the interesting element of the package is that it's really starting from the idea of learning with nature. So the package is not about learning about nature. I think this is a bit the traditional approach. We take the children to the forest, we show the trees, we show the leaves, we tell them, well, this is an oak, this is important for this and this. But with this package, City of Trees, we really um, uh, try to develop kind of immersive approach. So, for instance, there is our lessons, language lessons or mathematics lessons using trees, using leaves as material for learning about mathematics or about culture and so on. So if you are interested in education, if you're interested in awareness raising, um, please have a look at this nice package. Also for policymakers and senior practitioners, we have developed 4 guidelines on implementing trees and urban forests as providers of nature-based solutions. Of course, there's much more, but time is limited. So let's go to this second project, which is ongoing and which is the Urban Nature Plans Plus project. So in the European context, we have probably all heard about, or definitely all heard about the European Nature Restoration Law, which came into force recently, and it's less known that also in the urban in the urban sphere there is also are regulations or there are aims for urban green space. So the aim is that by 2030 there is no net loss anymore of tree cover or green space in European cities. So to support European cities in developing these urban nature plans, or maybe I have to introduce the urban nature plans. So in the framework of the biodiversity strategy, the European Commission or the European Union encourages cities with more than 20,000 residents to adapt such urban nature plans. Um, so this is something which is not necessarily very new, because also ICLE has already developed this 10-step approach about how to develop this urban nature plans. But what we really, or what is new is these targets, which are now part of the European Nature Restoration Law. So this is the timing, I would say, that within the next 5, 6 years, cities in Europe will probably be developing urban nature plans. Although lots of cities already have forestry plans, urban forestry plans, urban greening plans, or urban biodiversity plans. So it's definitely not the intention of this project to really force cities to develop new plans. So what I want to stress here, just this is just only a teaser to have a look at the project, but also want to introduce you. Well, it's not necessarily not on the slide, but I just want also to introduce to you that within less than 1 year, we will be launching with the Urban Nature Plans Plus project. We will be launching a capacity building program for cities about how can you develop this urban nature plan, but more importantly, how can you implement the plan in the field? Because, well, we all know there are so many plans, but the implementation sometimes can be a problem. So I think I will stop here. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to us at the European Forest Institute. Maybe, and now I'm one more thing which I'm not sure if it will work. if you're really interested in this theme of urban forestry, I would like to invite you to come to the annual forum, European Forum on Urban Forestry. Every year we convene in a city in Europe. Next year in June we will be hosted by the city of Zurich in Switzerland. And the theme of the next year's forum is Urban Forest for Resilient and Healthy Cities. It's a conference focused at researchers and practitioners, so we try to make it as much to the ground and into the practice as possible, including an excursion every day. And I think Zurich has a lot to learn from. So please be welcome next year in Zurich. So that was my story. Back to the moderator, I think.
Thank you very much, Rick, for your story. I have learned myself quite significant, information about these services and the perception, the potential public perception, which is always something that we should be working around, the mindset, right? And I loved the project on education for children. I would love to get in touch with you on that, because if you really want to change, definitely it has to be starting from the next generation. And then of course, thank you so much for the invitation next June. And we are also very much working for the nature restoration law. So I think that there is a lot there that we might be discussing further on. Thank you so much again, Rick. And as I was just hinting before, among the initiatives that UNECE is leading, let's say that the overall project started with this Trees in Cities challenge, which we when we launched it, it was a media campaign, a repository of cities where mayors would be pledging for planting trees. But now, with the years, it has become something much more substantial, and we are getting an informal network of experts through which we have peer exchanges, knowledge sharing, but also specifically projects linking the local level to the national level in terms of urban forestry. And with that, I want to be introducing, I can be introducing Istanbul, because Istanbul has recently joined Trees in Cities Challenge. So it's my biggest pleasure to have Raşit, Deniz speaking. Now, what is more interesting is that recently within the Istanbul Municipality, a new directorate has been developed, the Urban Ecological System Directorate, and Raşit is the chief of it. I can't tell you about his background, master in environmental sciences, PhD, whatever and whichever. He's been working on green cities adaptable to climate change. But what I think is very interesting that Raşit can just tell us about is the master plan that they are developing regarding urban greening and more. So the ecological indicators, criteria. So I just stop here and I give the floor to Raşit for learning more about the beautiful Istanbul and the urban greening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Stefania, and thank you for the invitation to AIPH. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for the previous presentation. Our team is here right now, and I think it's all well known. So thanks, Rick. I'm going to share my presentation with you. Yes, hello everyone again. Today I'm excited to present our efforts on Istanbul's growing trees for climate resilient cities. This initiative reflects our commitment to fostering urban resilience and sustainability through a well-planned and ecologically minded tree planting strategy. So we can talk a little bit of Istanbul. Actually, Istanbul, it's a very important city at the intersection of the Mediterranean and Euro-Siberian regions. It's home to diverse natural landscapes and ecosystems. However, like many global cities, we face urban challenges, particularly related to climate resilience. Trees are not only aesthetic for us, but also essential to our strategy, providing ecosystem services and enhancing social well-being in urban areas. In this context, we consider trees as powerful allies in the face of climate change and also contributing to resilience through ecosystem services and social value. And I can give you some example. It's in one of our historical groves in Fethi Paşa in Üsküdar. It's a monumental tree. We also look up to monumental trees because they are very important for us and for culture and also for our society. So I want to talk about also organizational structure because I think it's really matters. Our directorate is Urban Ecological Systems Directorate, oversees the management of historical groups, urban forests, and green spaces, ensuring they align with Istanbul's unique historical, cultural, and ecological identity. We collaborate across departments to address climate change, water scarcity, and biodiversity loss with ecology-based and innovative solutions. It's very important to establish this kind of directorate and also talk about trees and how important they are, not for the public, not for the citizens. Also, it's very important for the organization as well, because in Istanbul, our directorate is very new directorate. So we have to talk and we have to explain ourselves to public, to citizens, and also to our organization. So I can show you two photos from Atatürk Urban Forest. We conducted ecological restoration in that area. So you can see the before and after photos. And it's very important for us, that urban forest, because we can show to the people and also to other organizations, we can restore this kind of areas with ecological view and ecological perspective. And also, I would like to talk about some numbers according our planting efforts, tree planting efforts across Istanbul, because Istanbul, as I said, it's a very, very big city, and the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality especially is a very big organization. And you can see the number in here. We have made significant strides in tree planting. Since 2019, we planted over 692,000 trees, maintaining an annual average that exceeds 100,000. Moving forward, we aim to plant 150,000 trees annually to enhance Istanbul's green infrastructure. So you can see from the numbers, it's if we change the tree planting and the tree planting criteria, we can actually maintain a big change, especially in Istanbul. So we really take this issue very seriously. And also, I would like to talk about ecological criteria for tree planting. It's also another important issue for us. Right now, we are conducting Istanbul Biodiversity Project in our areas and also in Istanbul's water basins. We conducting Istanbul Biodiversity Project, which contains flora, fauna, lichen, and also soils assessments. So we conducting and we are maintaining the ecological criteria. It's not just for the trees, it's for all plants, but the trees are very big part of it. Our tree planting approach prioritizes ecological criteria such as supporting biodiversity, adapting to urban xeriscaping, and conserving wildlife. We select species based on tolerance to local conditions, pest resistance, and diversity to ensure sustainable and resilient green spaces. You can also see the flora ecological risk assessment table in here. It's on all our areas, and you can see our criteria, ecological criteria below them. And we can also, of course, talk about our master plan. As Stefania said, it's a huge step for us, the master plan. A plan to protect and enhance the urban ecosystem with a holistic approach, actually, because our master plan is a kind of holistic roadmap to protect and enhance Istanbul's urban ecosystem. We are developing a comprehensive tree inventory and conducting citywide assessment that considers urban heat, carbon sequestration and shading. And through this plan, we are laying the foundation for a sustainable urban landscape model that prioritizes ecological balance, climate resilience, and of course, community well-being. Because in Istanbul, and I reckon it's the same for the other cities, the community well-being and the community relations, it's a very big part of our job, because we also a big municipality. So while we are conducting this kind of jobs, this kind of works, we have to relate with the public and with the community as well. So it's a great part of our job also. And we can talk about the creation of a tree inventory. It's a very big and tough job for us in Istanbul, because I mentioned before, we have a huge tree planting annually in Istanbul. But this is our goals, and also we like to conduct a citywide assessment, and also we wanted to establish some ecological criteria, and also talk and explain that ecological criteria to public and also to organizations, because we have to talk and we have to make some jobs around them. It's very important for us. And evaluations of Istanbul's urban tree culture based on eco-psychological, technical, and aesthetic approach. It's also very important for us, because, like I said, the public relations is a very big part of our job. We can see in the past many maybe bright ideas or bright thinking is not maintained or applied because of the lack of the relations with the public. So like I said, as a municipality, it's a very important job for us. So I would like to talk about our ongoing projects as well. We conduct the Istanbul Drinking Water Basins Tree and Shrub Planting Guide, because planting guides is also very important for us in our department, and also the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, also a huge buyer for plants. So if we change the attitude, if we change the planting criteria based on ecological criteria, so it will be a huge effect on the planting attitude or planting evaluation, I can say. And also we have monumental and conservation worthy trees. So it's very important for us and also Istanbul, because monumental trees, not just for the aesthetic purposes, we care about them, because it's a great, I think it's a great platform for people to see the trees beside their aesthetic values, because all of the monumental trees in Istanbul have also very big cultural importance as well. So it's very important job for us. So maybe finally I can show the some photos. So we have a project, it's called UNECE. Istanbul Green Areas Administration System strategy document. So in Istanbul, we are doing everything based on UNECE. It's a management system also. It's a great archive and also a great software background for us. I think it's very important. The digitalization of it is very important too. So you can see also the cloud, the word cloud on there. It's based on our jobs, our thinking. And yes, I can say that. And ongoing projects, of course, I have to mention Istanbul Biodiversity Project. We will conduct the phase 2 in the coming days. It's also very important for us because it's in a municipality base. It's the first for Istanbul and also Turkey. So we give a great value for that. And yes, I think that's all. Sorry, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Raşit. Although I have been living myself in Istanbul, I have to say that that's the really first time that I've been learning more about the greening infrastructure of Istanbul. Seen on paper, and it's really very much promising to realize that finally, with this new directorate in place and with the master plan, the activities, the process, the initiatives are just undergoing and monitored, and then I understand also adjusted accordingly for a blossoming Istanbul. So thanking both Rick and Raşit. I think that now is time for questions. So whomever has questions can put them in the chat. But in the meantime, I think I have 2 questions myself. One to Raşit and one to Rick. Maybe starting from Rick, I would ask you, based on your research at the European Forest Institute, what would you say that are the most effective strategies for urban forestry in mitigating for example, urban heat island effect, the negative consequences of climate change? So how do you think that cities can ensure that strategies are adaptable to diverse environmental conditions across Europe?
Yeah, thank you. That's an interesting question. Well, I think it's the one of the most important things is to try to keep as much as possible trees and urban green space, which is already available in the city. Well, I had the pleasure to be in Istanbul, a bit more than 1 year ago. No, under 1 year ago anyway. And I've seen the work that is ongoing in Istanbul and other cities to green the city and plant more trees. But this is not a critique to Istanbul, but of course it's very difficult to keep existing trees because of not only because of new buildings and developments, but also because, for instance, the fact that the trees, big trees, are much more important for combating heat. But big trees have 2 or 3 main issues, definitely when they are outside of the park in the street, for instance. That's all the surrounding processes and things which are ongoing, putting electricity lines, telecom lines, and so on, and which is impacting the trees. Roots are cut because the electricity line has to be put, and so on, and this has an impact on the trees, of course. So I think we are sometimes thinking, well, the problem with the trees is development, but it's not only development; it's also all these infrastructures, I think. And of course, the drought is also a very important aspect. Um, as we have seen, well, I'm Belgium. I'm living in Belgium. We have seen not last summer it was very wet, but the summers before were very dry, which had an impact on the trees. So I would say, apart from keeping trees as much as possible, it's also very important to have as much as possible, um, uh, not as much as possible trees, but to serve every street, every district. In our capital, Brussels, we have a huge forest. Well, for us, it's a huge forest, 2,500, 3,000 hectares of Sonian forest. If you ever are in Brussels, really visit it. It's really nice. But most people are living at the other side of the city, and they do not have the cooling. They do not have all the benefits of the forest. So yeah, I think, well, most people now know the 330-300 rule by Professor Konijnendijk. This is definitely a good way of looking. Maybe it's difficult to achieve at the short term, but it's really a good guideline, I think, rule of thumb to foresee as much as possible green space in every district.
Yeah, and then Rick, if I may, thank you so much for that. I notice myself when we have our UNECE webinars, the real issue which is raised by citizens, by organizations, by city administrators is the maintenance. Because it's not all about planting, but it's about how
Yeah,
are
yeah.
we maintaining them economically, sociologically, technically. That's quite an issue, isn't it?
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah. Well, I'm always well, when people ask my opinion about tree planting, and of course it's great, or tree planting campaigns, or raising money for tree planting. Well, I say, well, it's nice to give 10, 15, 20, 25 euros for planting the tree, but as a fundraiser, please try to raise also funding for the management, definitely in the first years, because that's really crucial. I think a figure that we have to keep in mind, or two figures maybe, is that it's mainly based on American research. We do not have money research on this in Europe, but the average age of a tree in American cities is about 25 years. I think in European cities it's more or less the same. But yeah, it's only when the trees are growing and old and large that they really provide the ecosystem service. And even
Yeah.
from a carbon perspective, um, well, there are lots of factors, of course, but even from a carbon perspective, we plant trees for the carbon, for the climate, but it's only after 10, 15 years that the trees are,
So,
well, a planted tree needs 10 or 15 years to offset the carbon it has emitted in the nursery and when being transported and planted. So yeah, um, really trying to have big trees in the city is important, yeah. And for
yeah.
that, you need the maintenance and the budget for the maintenance, yeah.
So long-term planning, long-term
Yeah, yeah.
comprehensive planning, which I think is something that the master plan also includes, right, Raşit? If I understand from what you just presented. And in fact, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you specifically was just I mean, you just mentioned biodiversity, scarescaping, and ecological planning in its tree planting strategies. Now, how would you say that this priority influence the selection of tree species in Istanbul, and how this approach supports long-term urban resilience? How do you select tree species in Istanbul?
Yes, thank you very much for the question, Stefania. So it's a very complex, I think, and a broad system we have to maintain it carefully, because in Istanbul, as I said, we plant over 100,000 plants. So it's actually a supply chain system in Istanbul, because we buy plants from the nurseries or the other kind of kind of places. So when we change the plans, when we set the ecological criteria for these plans, but we have to conduct some projects, we have to conduct some analysis and inventories, and also biodiversity inventories. For that, we have to work at first, and then we have to change the ongoing plant species and also plant species selection process. After that, we can see the effect actually, because in Istanbul, which is a big city, we can see the effects actually immediately in I think 2021 in Istanbul. We have had like this boulevard for a project. We changed the planting in there, so we set the ecological criteria, and for the results of this article, we can see the effects on heat islands and also air quality. So I think it's very important to focus on this kind of criteria, and it will change the ecological balance for sure. But we have to, I think that's very important. We have to calculate. We have to monitor. We have to monitor these effects, because if we are not, it's just it can't be go further than the like a slogan. So we have to monitor, and we have to conduct more biodiversity projects and make it public, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no slogans, but effective urban
Yeah.
planning. And you told me once of those times that we have been spoken, you told me about tulips, right?
Yes, you are very right. So before, I think 2019, in Istanbul, it's a cultural thing, by the way, tulips. So we like for Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, we bought some can say too many tulips. It's close to 46 million before 2019. So we only show it, like we only use it very short amount of time. But after that, after our directorate established, we changed the numbers. Now we are conducting, like we are planting, I think close to 8 million. So we still delivering the culture of it. But we set the ecological criteria, so we decrease it, and we receive so many praises and so many good words, both public and also academics.
Great, great. So it's an invitation to Istanbul, not only for me, but to everyone, I think.
Yeah, of course.
And I can see from the window chats that there is more questions. And Rick, you talked about the 330-300 rule. So someone from the audience is asking, what's your experience with it and its application?
Well, personally myself, I've not yet implemented it. I've seen lots of different cities and regions implementing it. Well, as it's quite a new rule, it's mainly in the planning phase. Well, I think the strength is in the ease of the rule. On the first hand, to remember it, but also monitoring it is not too complicated. And well, it depends on the data you have available at the city level, of course. And important, I think, is also it's not a rule. It's more a guideline or a guidance, and it's for some cities. Well, some cities already have 35%, so they should not cut 5% to reach the 30%, of course. But yeah, I think it's good to make people aware on the one hand of all the benefits of trees. I think, well, people on the one hand know, I think most people feel there are many benefits related to trees, but we do not, on many people, and definitely decision makers, politicians, are not really aware of the positive impacts on the health, for instance. And this is something the 330-300 rule can also indicate and guide the discussions or create discussions or lead to discussions. So yeah, for me it's how to say, it's some ambition that cities can have if or below, and if you have 2.5 trees in average from every window, yeah, it's good. So yeah, I've heard a lot about, well, I know Professor Konynenday quite well, so I've heard a lot about how it came into into the concept, and it's also a result of the COVID pandemic, where we really noticed that people were really using trees and needing trees and forests to survive, definitely in cities where you basically could not get out of your house.
So better to steer the target high, and then whatever comes, it's already a good achievement. That's
Yep.
not the rule, but rather a hope. I mean, an aspiration. Thanks for that. Maybe we have 1 more minute for the last question. If any of you can answer in 1 minute. The question is, more questions are coming, but I think it's a bit late. I mean, we have 2 questions. What would be a good sensor to monitor the impacts of trees? How often should they measure? Quick answer. Very quick answer.
Yeah, that's the difficult one. I think there are many sensors, and well, one positive impact I think of the recent developments is that with drones, it's getting much more easy to measure the impact, and also the satellite imagery is getting better and better.
What is the situation in different countries with the supply of trees? I heard, for example, in Germany, certain tree sites and species are difficult to get. And considering that working in horticulture is not very popular anymore, there might be more difficulties to get enough trees because there are less growers. Who wants to pick it up? Rick or Raşit?
Yeah, maybe like I don't know exactly the different countries, but in Istanbul or in Turkey, we used to, like right now, we still have plants or the trees from the outside abroad, exotic plants. But now on biodiversity project, we say it could be invasive. So maybe it's a very important criteria for this. And like in Istanbul, you try not to buy or not to get the plants from abroad, or the plants that not suitable for the land for this precise location. Maybe I can say that.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. Very, very, very interesting. I'm sure that there is more and more questions coming, but we have to close it, unfortunately. And I would like to give a big, big thank you to Rick, to Raşit from Brazil, Istanbul, 2 very beautiful cities. And it's great to hear that, new forces coming to make our cities more livable. And with that, I pass the floor back to Francesca. And thanks for the invitation as well. And stay tuned with all our initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you to our wonderful MC Stefania there, and to our speakers Rick and Raşit for fantastic presentations and more wonderful discussions and brilliant questions there. If you do have any other questions for our speakers, please do head over to our LinkedIn page or email us, and we will do our best to get back to you with them from the speakers. So to you, our audience, joining from all around the world, it's brilliant to see so many different countries represented in our audience today. Thank you for joining us, and do be sure to join us for the rest of the briefing or the briefing series even. Next month, we will be exploring promoting biodiversity across the city. I do hope you've enjoyed today's webinar, and perhaps you'd like to take some time to recommend it to a friend. The recording will be available next week. Finally, I'd like to thank our sponsor of the briefing series, the Worshipful Company of Gardeners. Until next time, may I once again say thank you ever so much and goodbye from me and from the AIPH Green City team.